Project 308, my name is Lou Trottier, and Terry is my sidekick, and I'm sure he thinks that I'm his sidekick, but no. Anyways, Terry's working on this 1940 Chevy half-ton, converting it from a 6-volt system to a 12-volt system, but you're here for this guy, so let's get into that video right now. So some of you may have noticed that I put the brakes in dry, and I've done them dry for now because I'm nowhere near actually being on the road. So I'm gonna do a quick service and lubricate everything before I go on the road. So they're easy, they come in and out really easy. So let's visit that later. Alright, so if you see the gap right there between the brake pad and the rotor. So what I have to do is I have to adjust this piston on all 4 pistons to get them out so that they're just touching down, or I'll never get the parking brake right. Now normally there would be a pin that holds the brake rotor against the hub, but I don't have one of those. Maybe I'll order one of these days, but for now, improvise. Each caliper has 2 pistons, an inner and an outer, and each piston has its own adjuster. In addition to these adjusters, the inboard caliper half also houses the parking brake mechanism. All you have to do is remove both access ports, grab yourself an Allen key, and adjust these pistons to the point where they're just pushing enough on the pad where it just touches down on the rotor. It's also pretty easy to overdo it a bit and cause it to bind, but you just back it off a bit. So as I prepare to install my master cylinder, my new Superformance master cylinder, I need to double check the clearance between the pushrod, which is in the brake booster, and here, because I need to allow a little bit of room. There's a great video from a fellow that I've met a couple times. I'm going to put a link to the screen on it right now from Benzina, where he goes into exquisite detail on how to do this. So I'm not going to reinvent that video because he did a very good job. If you are installing a master cylinder and you need to know how to measure and set that push rod length, go here. Here? Oh, I never get it right. I never know if it's the left or the right, but somewhere here. Anyways, let's get into this. I have a total of 1.3, which seems kind of large. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to double check all my math and reconfirm my numbers, do the math over again because I'm assuming I've made a mistake. We'll find out momentarily. Alright, so now I've gone and done it properly and really took my time and made sure I got the exact numbers. I'm at 0.8, the spec is 0.3, I'm at 0.8. Honestly, I don't think it's that important. I think a little bit extra is actually okay, so I've got a 0.5 of a mil extra. All that means is for sure my brakes aren't going to heat up, expand, and lock on. So the whole premise of this is that if the push rod is too short, then as everything expands, you could potentially get into a situation where the brakes don't release when they're hot. Leaving that little bit of extra clearance allows for expansion. 0.5 of a millimeter over. I think I'm going to live with it. This is my old reservoir, and as you can see, it's missing a chunk there. Is this focused? Now, the problem with wearing bifocals or transition is I have to turn my head up like this to see. Anyways, if you look right there, you can see that this reservoir is not so good. And since I have a shiny new master cylinder, well, what better than a new reservoir? These are actually really hard to find though. So lots of you have installed a master cylinder and you know you have to bench bleed it. That's where you have the reservoir in, you put it on in a vise, you run a couple hoses into the top of the reservoir, and you just push the push rod back and forth manually, and you excise the air from the cylinder right here. The problem with this application is because it's a Ferrari, man, it's got no clearance. And if this reservoir is installed at the time that I put it on, I won't be able to get to that stud, that nut. And of course it wouldn't go on, so I had to just clean up each hole just a teeny weeny bit to get it in there. And now for the tough one. You kind of have to do this one by feel. You can't really see it. And just like that, it's break time. No, Alfonso, that's not the kind of break I was talking about. And neither is this. Ooh. Oh man, it's getting worse by the second. I need someone to save us all. There he is. Thanks, MJ. The kind of break I was actually talking about was to paint the two lower valance vent thingies that go at the back of the car. These vents were very pitted, and spray painting them any kind of light paint wasn't doing them justice. So I ended up sandblasting them again and then painting them with this heavier brush stuff. But they actually turned out really well. And yes, before you ask, I actually used to have an air-powered rivet gun. But you know, I lent it out to somebody and can't remember who I lent it to, and now I've never got it back. But I'm making do. I scoured the shop looking for a master cylinder bleeder kit. Of course, it was one of those things that's long since disappeared. So I just went and ordered this Dorman one. Part number is... where's the part number? Right there, 13911. Alright, so here's my setup. I've got just the bottom of an old Prestone bottle that I cut because I'm sure I'm going to leak a little bit. These hoses come up, Go into the master cylinder. And what else do I need? Just need to get moving on it, I guess.
Just pump?
Yeah, just pump, please.
Alright.
No, just stop.
As per usual, this is not going well. I can't seem to clear the air in the port closest to the brake booster. And you know what? I'm looking at it and I think the internet lied to me. I think I can get this whole thing off as an assembly. Haha, success!
Check to make sure it's not leaking from the reservoir there.
Little do you know, but Terry's always kind of lurking, and he comes over
Let's
to take a peek and see what's going on.
I got gear pressure, but no fluid pressure. There you go.
We found the issue eventually. It was, oddly enough, it was the seal between the reservoir and the master cylinder itself. Somehow it was letting air in, but it wasn't squirting fluid out. Weird.
You have a power bleeder with dot 4, right? Where is it?
Under my
That's the one with dot 4?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a brake power bleeder. This is the cap that mates to pretty much all European master cylinder reservoirs. We pump this up to anywhere between 5 and 10 psi. This is full of dot 4 brake fluid. We have another one in the shop that has dot 3 brake fluid in it. And it forces brake fluid up through here, into the master cylinder, and puts pressure on it. We have a problem, Houston.
Houston, we have a problem.
Please disperse! Nothing to see here, please!
Yeah, I had a leak. Rookie mistake. It happens to the best of us. I forgot to tighten one of those caps. There's 2 of them, and I didn't get one tightened. I spilt brake fluid all over the place. But I got it cleaned up pretty darn quick. Whew. For vehicles that predate anti-lock brakes, like this one typically starts the bleeding process at the furthest point away from the master cylinder. If your vehicle has ABS brakes, though, this pattern doesn't always apply. Follow the instructions as the manual lists them. I also recognize that most do-it-yourselfers aren't going to have a power bleeder in their house. I mean, some of you do, but not many. Normally you would do the old pumperoo method. A quick test, and maybe we'll do it one more time, just to err on the side of caution.
Alright, so now we just have to go and check all our connections to make our new lines to make sure they're all dry. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, meaning it absorbs water. So all manufacturers now want brake fluid changed every 2 to 3 years. So we do a lot of brake fluid changing, and these machines make it so easy and so quick. Gets the air out right away, rarely any issues. My pedal on my car is so firm, it's really good. No leaks either. I got lucky. Out of all the connections I made, I don't have a single leak. Not bad for somebody who hasn't done this in 20 years. So everything I read and saw online said that that reservoir had to be attached to the master cylinder, had to be detached, sorry, in order to get it in and out, but it can be done with it attached. Mind you, I don't have air conditioning in my car, so I might have a little bit extra leeway there, but I still think it can be done, even with the air conditioning in the car.